Greetings, viewers. This is CP666 signing on with a video that to be quite honest, I don't want to do. But I'm going to do it anyway to try and silence the relentless stream of pretty much the same question. This is the most requested video on this channel. What computers do you own? Can I see all your computers? Can I see all your computers running? Well, the answer to the latter question is no, because if I were to do that on this video, the video would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 hours long. And given the average view length on my videos is about 1 minute and 30 seconds, or thereabouts, I don't think that's a recipe for success. So we're not going to do that. But we will stem the request tide and take a look at every computer that I own with some caveats. And this really is the big reason why I don't want to make this video, is because the computer collection is in a constant state of flux. Things come, things go, things change, and by the time this video usually ends up getting uploaded, because I've done this a couple of times now, there's so many changes that have been done that I need to make so many amendments to the video that it's really just not even worth uploading. I might as well just remake the whole thing. Hopefully we're going to stem the tide with that by advancing this down the pipeline and uploading it sooner. But that, of course, brings along with it the problem that there are machines that don't have videos yet that you've never seen. There are machines that I've made changes to that have videos that you've never seen because they're not uploaded yet. So the chronological order is going to be a little strange. The other important caveat about this is because my computer collection is so freaking large, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I don't remember. There are some machines that I still have yet to power on, so I don't know what they're doing, what their status is. But I'm going to try my best, and in the video description there is a link to a portion of my website that will show you all of the computers that I've got. And I try to keep that up to date, sometimes more successfully than others. That will show you what I have. Now, that comes with its own caveat, in that there are information pages for some machines that have detailed specs, but there are none for others. I haven't gotten around to it because that's going to take forever as well. So I've tried to list CPUs as best as possible on that. That's on the main list. But again, there are some things that I just don't know. It may or may not be any more complete than what this video is. We'll put it that way. But the other thing I'm going to do is in the video description, there will be a link to a video of every machine. So that's going to be one long description. And again, that comes with the caveat of there has to actually be a video upload of the machine itself. I'm going to try and keep the description up to date. So if you want more information on any one given machine, check the video description. In any event, I figure this is probably a good place to start. This is my main computer. People ask me about this case all the time. This is an Antec NSK2400 case. It's got a Gigabyte B450M DS3H motherboard with an AMD R5 2600 CPU, 16 gigs of DDR4 3000 RAM, a 240 gigabyte Kingston SSD, as well as a 1 terabyte Western Digital Blue for data storage. There's a 2 terabyte Seagate that I use to store all of my raw video stuff. There's a Western Digital external drive back there. A My Passport Metal Edition. That's a backup of all the video stuff. Above that is a Toshiba, I believe they call those Canvio Basics. That stores all my virtual hard drives for virtual machines. And then right there is a Seagate expansion drive that's just used for other random things. It's got a Radeon R9 380 video card. I think it's an XFX brand card, but it's really no different than the reference card. It's running Windows 8.1, even though supposedly that's not supposed to be possible, because on a supported platform, there are ways around that. So it's running Windows 8.1, which I prefer to Windows 10, so that's the story with this machine here. Buried behind all that mess is another Antec NSK2400. That houses the home theater computer, which is another Gigabyte B450M DS3H, but that one's got an AMD R3 2200G CPU with the Vega 8 graphics. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, but that's DDR4 2400. It's a little bit slower and cheaper. A 120 gigabyte Lexar NS100 SSD, and it is running Windows 10. Unfortunately, you can't run anything other than Windows 10 or Linux with the Vega 8 graphics, and I could not get Linux to load on that, so Windows 10 it was. That is the low-end radio stream encoder. I believe HEC makes this particular case. I got two of them. But this one houses an Asus Q87M-E motherboard with a Core i7-4770 CPU, 16 gigs of RAM. It has a 250 gig Western Digital Blue SSD, an AMD Radeon HD 7970 video card, and it is running Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit. Squished in there is the so-called Party Line PC. That's another HEC case, small form factor. It's got a Gigabyte H55M S2H motherboard that I believe I've called an H61M in a lot of my videos, just because I apparently don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Because the H61's a Sandy Bridge, and this is before the Sandy Bridge, the first generation Core i series. It's got a Core i3 530 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, it's DDR3 1066, 128 gigabyte Apacer SSD, and it is running Windows 8.1 Pro 64-bit. This system here is the low-end radio slideshow PC. It's got an Intel DQ67SWB3 motherboard, an Intel Core i7 2600 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, it's DDR3 1333, a 120 gigabyte ADATA SU650 SSD, an NVIDIA GeForce GT630 video card, and it is running Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit as well. That's fairly reflective. You can see both of those have fairly dirty displays because they actually both have touchscreens. This one is an HP TouchSmart 320. That's my music player computer. It's got an AMD A4 3400 APU, 4 gigs of RAM, a 640 gigabyte Western Digital hard drive that I probably ought to replace because it's got bad sectors, and it is running Windows 10, simply because I didn't feel like reloading it. This is an Advantech PPC 120T RT. I believe it's intended to be an industrial automation computer, but I am using it for soundboards because, again, it's got a touchscreen. So it's got a 233 megahertz Intel Pentium MMX CPU, 128 megs of RAM. I think it's PC 133. I don't think it's new enough to be DDR, and I don't think it's old enough to be using Sims either. A 10 gigabyte IBM hard drive. It's just a little 2.5-inch laptop drive, and it is running Windows NT Workstation 4.0. Hiding out under here is another HEC case, small form factor. This has got an Asus P8Q77M motherboard, an Intel Core i5-3570 CPU, 8 gigs of ADATA XPG DDR3 memory, 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD, and it right now is running Ubuntu 20.10 with the Mate desktop. Coming down here, this thing is the guest music player computer, so if I ever have a co-host in here on low-end radio, this is the machine that they use to play music. It's an HP Pavilion P6 2116, got an Intel Pentium G640 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, it's DDR3 1333 I believe, 1 terabyte Western Digital RE4, it's actually got an NVIDIA Quadro FX 4600 video card in it, and it's running Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit. Beside that, this is the HP Pavilion A320N case that I have repurposed for several different things. Right now, it's got a Gigabyte Z77M D3H, I should say, with an Intel Core i5-3450 CPU, 4 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaws DDR3 1600 RAM, 750 gigabyte Western Digital Black. It's actually a laptop hard drive. No video cards in that. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's an AMD Radeon HD 6770. And it's running right now Windows 7 Professional 32-bit, just because it's got a capture card in it that is not supported under 64-bit Windows. And it doesn't seem to be supported under anything newer than Windows 7 anyway. I believe they call this the Antec 1 case, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But this has an Asus P5N-E SLI motherboard, an Intel Core 2 Quad Q9550 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM. It's DDR2 800. A 240 gigabyte Western Digital Green SSD. It's got a pair of NVIDIA GeForce 8600 GTS video cards, which are, of course, running an SLI, and it's running Windows 7 Ultimate 64-bit. That up there I use to interface with IRC clients, IRC servers, I should say. It's an IRC client machine. That's the HP Pavilion 6648C. That is an AMD K62550, to the best of my knowledge. Oh, good heavens. 256 megabytes of memory. It's PC-133, I can tell you that. A 20 gigabyte hard drive, and it is running Windows 2000 Professional right now. That right there I use for the floppy drive. That is the Shuttle XPC, model SS51G version 2. Pentium 4, 2.4 gigahertz. It's got 1 gig of RAM in it. A 80 gigabyte Maxtor hard drive, which I think is serial ATA. And it's running Windows XP. And that, my friends, is unfortunately where the detailed knowledge of what is in each computer and what it's running pretty much ends. So there'll be sporadic details here as we go along on this video at this particular point. So we'll start with these laptops, which I'm sure somebody's going to call me on their positioning. Stacking them like this is not good for them, I'm well aware of that, but there's not a whole lot that I can do with the very limited amount of storage space that I have. So this is just going to be the way that it is. At the top of the pile there is a Lenovo ThinkPad T410. That is a Core i5 520M with 8 gigs of DDR3 RAM, 128 gigabyte Apacer ADATA SX900 SSD. It's actually the first ever SSD that I bought, and that's running Windows 7. I believe it's running Windows 7 Professional 64-bit because that's what it came with from Lenovo. Or sorry, it came from IBM. It was a refurb, an off-lease machine. Another off-lease machine down there, that's a Lenovo ThinkPad T430, which is a Core i5 3320M, again with 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. That has a 256 gigabyte Crucial SSD. It's also got a 160 gigabyte Seagate drive for data storage. And it's running Windows 7 as well. Below that is a Dell Inspiron 640M. That is a Core Duo T2400. I don't remember how much RAM is in it, but it's got a 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD. It's running MX Linux. Below that is a Dell Latitude D630. That is a Core 2 Duo T7100. I think it's got the NVIDIA graphics, but I'm not positive on that. I've never really checked. I don't know how much RAM is in it. It's got a 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD, and it's running Q4 OS, which is Linux. Below that is a Lenovo ThinkPad T500. That is a Core 2 Duo P8400. I think it's got 4 gigs of RAM, but it might have 8. It has a 120 gigabyte Kingston SSD, and it's running Windows 8.1. Below that's an HP G60. That's a Celeron M of some description. I don't remember the amount of RAM. 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD, running Windows 7. Below that's a real piece of crap. That's an HP 2000. That's got an AMD E350 APU. I don't know how much RAM. It's got a 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD. Maybe that's got a 128. It's got either a 40 or a 128. It's running Windows 10. Much to my chagrin, it doesn't run very well. Below that is a Dell XPS L502X. That is a Core i7 2670 QM, or MQ. I don't remember the order of those. 8 gigs of RAM. That's a 240 gig Kingston SSD. And it's running Windows 7. That machine on its side, that is a HP Pavilion G6 with an AMD A6. I think it's a 3400M APU. 6 gigs of RAM, 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD, running Windows 10 with the Insider Preview builds. The top of that pile right there is a Toshiba Satellite L300D 044. That's an AMD Athlon 64X2 QL62, 4 gigs of RAM, 250 gigabyte Western Digital hard drive, running Windows Vista Home Premium. Below that is a Lenovo ThinkPad T61. That is a Core 2 Duo T7700, 4 gigs of RAM. I think it's got a 128 gig of Pacer SSD in it. It's running Windows 8.1. Below that's a Gateway MX6436. That has got an AMD Sempron 3300 Plus. I don't remember how much RAM it has in it, or what hard drive it's got. It's running POS Ready 2009. Below that is a Dell Inspiron 6400. That is a Core 2 Duo T5500 to the best of my knowledge. Don't know the RAM or the hard drive. It's running Windows Vista Business. Below that is a Toshiba Satellite A110. That is another Celeron M. I think it's a Celeron M900. Don't know the RAM or the hard drive in that one either, but it's running Anti-X Linux. Below that is a Toshiba Tecra A8. That is a Core Duo T2300. Don't know the RAM or the hard drive in that one either. And it's running Peppermint Linux. Below that is an HP DV9000. That is another Core 2 Duo T5500. Don't know the RAM. I do know that it's got a 128 gig Pacer SSD, as well as, I think it's a 500 gigabyte hard drive of some description. It's got a bunch of music on it because I've been using it as a portable music player computer whenever I do on-the-road shows. It's running Windows 7. Below that is an HP DV8000. That is an AMD Turion 64 ML37, I think. Don't know the RAM. 80 gigabyte boot drive, and a 320 gigabyte Western Digital data drive. That's also got a bunch of music on it because I was using it for what I was using the DV9000 for a while. But it's running Linux Mint 20. Oh look, more laptops. Yeah, can you see why this is going to be a very long video if I chose to power them all up? The top of this pile, that is a Toshiba Portage M100. I think that's a Pentium M 1.4 gigahertz. I don't know the RAM or the hard drive. It's running Linux Mint Debian Edition. Below that is a Portage 300 CT. That's a Pentium MMX of some description or another. I think it's like a 233. Right now it's running Red Hat. I need to do stuff with that. Below that is the Dell Latitude XPI CD M166 ST. So that's a Pentium 166 with MMX. 8 megs of RAM. That's what's on the motherboard. I don't remember the hard drive. Right now it's running Windows 98. I'm going to need to reload the OS on that. Those are 2 PowerBooks. I forget the order, but one of them is a 165, which is a 33 megahertz 68030, with goodness only knows how much RAM. And I think that's got a Toshiba SCSI hard drive in it, of some description or another. 200 megabytes or so. It's not running an operating system, neither is the 170 that's below it. That's a 25 megahertz 68030 with 4 megs of RAM. That is the Compaq Armada 1535DM, Pentium MMX. I want to say it's a 233. 16 megs of RAM. I don't remember the hard drive, and it's running Windows 98. I need to reload the OS on that too. Below that is a Compaq Presario 1650. I don't remember really much about it other than the fact it's a Pentium 2 that's running Anti-X Linux. Below that is a Toshiba Satellite 1800. That's a Pentium 3 running Windows Millennium Edition. Those are 2 Tecras. The top one's an 8100, the bottom's an 8200. They're pretty similar, both Pentium 3s. I think it's 550 and 800 megahertz respectively. This one has got 512 meg and this one's got 256 meg of RAM. I think they both have 10 gigabyte hard drives, or one of them's got a 40, the other one's got a 10. This is running Windows XP and this one's running Windows 2000. This is also running Windows 2000. This is a Dell Latitude CPX J750 GT. 128 megs of RAM. I don't remember the hard drive in that one either. That is a Sony Vaio PCG FR130, which is an Athlon XP 2000 Plus. I don't remember the RAM. It's got a 60 gigabyte Toshiba hard drive in it. Dual booting Windows XP with the unofficial Service Pack 4 installed and Q4 OS. Come over here, at the top of the pile there is an IBM ThinkPad 240X. That's a Pentium 2, I think. Maybe a Pentium 3. But it needs a lot of work. Below that's another PowerBook 170, 68030, 25 megahertz with 4 megs of RAM. Don't remember the hard drive in that either. I don't think it's running anything right now. Needs some help. Below that is the Dell Latitude XPI P133 ST. That's got a Pentium 133 in it, obviously. I think it's got like 30-something megs of RAM or something equally as weird. 36 megs probably, because it's got 4 megs on board. And I think it's got 32 megabytes of expansion memory. A 1.3 gig hard drive. Right now it's running Windows 95, or maybe it's running 98. I think it's running 95 though. I'm going to have to reinstall the OS. Below that is a Portage 7020 CT. That needs some help. It's a Pentium 2 366, I believe. It's got no hard drive in it right now. Below that is the Toshiba Satellite Pro 420 CDT, Pentium 120, 40 megs of RAM. Don't remember the size of the hard drive. That's running DOS and Windows 3.1. Below that is the Toshiba Tecra 730 CDT. That's a Pentium 150 without MMX. 48 megs of RAM, I think. Don't remember the size of the hard drive. It's running Windows 98 with the Plus Pack. Below that is the NEC Versa 6230. That is a Pentium 233 with 128 megs of RAM, 10 gigabyte hard drive. It's running Windows 95 OSR2. Below that, that one needs to be reloaded. It's running Windows 3.0 right now. But that's the Dell Latitude LM M133 ST. Pentium 133, of course. That is a Toshiba Tecra 8000, Pentium 2 366, 128 megs of RAM, might be 256, with a 10 gig hard drive. It's running Anti-X Linux. Or I'm sorry, no, that's running Windows NT4 now. It was running Anti-X. That is a Asus L8400C. That is a Pentium 3, running Windows Millennium Edition. Below that is an Acer Aspire 3680. That is a Celeron M of some description. I think it's got a gigabyte of memory in it. A 40 gig hard drive. It's running Windows XP. Below that is a IBM ThinkPad R50E. That is a Pentium 3 as well. Don't remember anything else about it other than it's running Windows XP. At the very top of that is an Asus EPC 701, or I think it's a 700. It's a 2G Surf, that's what they call it. It's a Celeron with 512 meg of RAM, 2 gigabytes of flash storage. It's running the custom Xandros Linux build that it would have come with brand new. Below that's an HP DV5000. That is a Core Duo T2300. I don't remember what else is in it, and it needs some help as well. That is a Compaq Presario A948CA. It's a Pentium dual core T2390, 4 gigs of RAM, 40 gigabyte of Pacer SSD, and it's running Bodhi or Body Linux. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. BODHI. In that laptop bag just below it's a Magnavox Professional Metalis SX. Yes, Magnavox made laptops. It's a 386, but I don't really know anything else about it, and it doesn't really work. It actually blew up in my face when I went to go power it on, probably because of bad capacitors. Below that is a Zenith Z-Note Flex NTB005. It's a 486. It's got a 520 megabyte hard drive. It's running DOS right now. I need to do a little bit more work to it. 4 more PowerBooks, the order of which I don't remember, but we're going to do it in this order. 165C, which is a 33 megahertz 68030, 14 megs of RAM. I don't remember. But it's got like a... I don't remember the hard drive either, but I know it's running System 7.5. There's a 170 running System 701. That's a 25 megahertz 68030, 4 megs of RAM. That's got an 80 megabyte hard drive. PowerBook 180, which is a 33 megahertz 68030, 14 megs of RAM, 80 megabyte hard drive running System 7.5. PowerBook 520C, that is a 25 megahertz 68LCO40, 12 megs of RAM, 250 megabyte, or is it 240 megabyte? One of the two. Connor hard drive, and it's running System 7.5 as well. Even more laptops behind this mess. There's the Fora LP286L. I don't remember the clock speed on the CPU, or again, really anything else about it. There's an Asus M51E back there. I don't remember exactly which Core 2 Duo it's got in it. I think the sticker said T5750 or something. 4 gigs of RAM, That's got a 128 gigabyte, I think, a Pacer SSD. Maybe a 40 gigabyte. It's running Windows 7. And above that, in that bag right there, is a MicroStar NoteStar NP943, I think it is. That's another 486 laptop. But that one needs a lot of help as well. Floppy drive is bad, and it's got no operating system. It's got an 80 megabyte hard drive. Here's another laptop. This is a Lenovo ThinkPad T400. It needs a little bit of work as well. But that's a Core 2 Duo P8600 with 4 gigs of RAM. There's no hard drive in it right now. And then we come to the blast furnace that is the server closet. Now, everything below this is all server stuff. This is just here for storage because I need to store things somewhere. Down there, that is a compact case. I think it's like an SR1750NX or something that I've reused. It's got an MSI A78M E35 motherboard in it with an A10 5700 APU, 8 gigs of RAM. The boot drive is a 128 gigabyte, a Pacer SSD. It's also got a 500 gigabyte hard drive and a 2 terabyte hard drive because it runs a couple virtual machines. But its primary purpose, and the reason why it's got so many network cards in it, is to act as a wireless bridge to go from the wireless network in the house over to my wired network up here. Buried behind that gigantic mess of wires are 2 identically configured machines that I'm using as firewalls in a high availability setup, if for no other reason than I can, and it's come in handy a couple of times when my primary, which is this one right here, has decided that it is going to lay down and die because it had a motherboard problem. Either way, both of those, I think those are HEC cases, but I'm not positive on that. I don't really know. They're not server cases, they're just standard full-size ATX. I believe they call them mid-towers. But they've got Intel SE7230 NH1-E server boards in them, with Pentium D840 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM. This one has got an 80 gigabyte hard drive, and that one's got a 250 just because that's what was laying around. Both of them are running pfSense 2.4.5 at the current moment, which is the latest stable release. Beside that, this stores all of my YouTube uploads, everything that I've uploaded to YouTube. This is an Antec case. I really love this case. I'd like to get a few more of them, but they don't seem to be easy to find or cheap. It's got a Gigabyte EP45 DS3L motherboard, a Core 2 Duo E8400 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM. The boot drive is a 16 gigabyte Apacer Industrial SSD. It's got 4 2 terabyte hard drives in a RAID 5 for 6 terabytes of storage. 3 of those are Western Digital so-called AVGP green power drives. One of them is a Hitachi, which replaced an AVGP that failed. It's also got a 4 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf, which is used as a backup of the RAID array because I don't trust RAID to save my bacon. Beside that is my backup server. This is an Antec Sonata 2 case. It's got an Asus M4A785M motherboard with a Phenom 2 X2 545 CPU, 6 gigs of RAM because one of the RAM slots is bad, 16 gigabyte Apacer boot drive. It's got a pair of Western Digital RE4 2 terabyte drives. It's got a 2 terabyte AVGP drive. It's got a 2 terabyte Toshiba, one of those little 2.5-inch drives. It actually came out of one of those Canvio external enclosures when the controller on the enclosure failed, the little USB bridge chip. And 4 1 terabyte RE4 drives, which are in a pair of RAID 0 arrays, because it stores a lot of backups. And I'm going to actually add a USB drive. Eventually I'll add a USB 3.0 controller to this, but I'm going to add a USB 3.0 drive, a little USB thing, and another internal drive, and it's going to store even more backups. That'll be another 2 terabyte, probably an AVGP, because I've got one of those laying around that's in decent condition, or it might be the RE4 that I've got laying around as well. This system is running Sigma-NAS 12.1, or actually I think this one's 11.4, and this one is Sigma-NAS 12.1. This is my main file server. It's an old eMachines case. It's got an Intel DQ77MK motherboard with a Core i5 2300 CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, 40 gigabyte Apacer it's not an industrial, it's one of those little solid state drives. It's got a 320 gig Western Digital Scorpio Blue, a 500 gigabyte Seagate Momentus, a 1 terabyte Western Digital RE4, and a 2 terabyte Western Digital AVGP, all acting as storage for various things. It's running Windows Server 2016 Data Center, I believe. It's Windows Server something or another. This over here is my ISO server. This is a repurposed Acer Aspire case. And it's got an Intel DQ57TM motherboard with a Core i5 650 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM, an Apacer 16 gigabyte industrial SSD for boot, 2 Western Digital RE4 hard drives, and a Seagate drive. They're all 1 terabyte. There's a RAID 1, as well as a backup drive for the RAID 1. It is running Open Media Vault 5.5. This stores my downloaded YouTube videos. It's an ASRock S330 mini PC with an Atom 330 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, a 1 terabyte Western Digital Blue hard drive, and it is running Open Media Vault 5.5 as well. That is an Acer Aspire 1 D250 netbook. It's got an Atom N270 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD. It's also got that 500 gigabyte Western Digital My Passport Ultra, which stores music because it runs automation. That also runs automation. That is the Aspire 1 532H. That is an Intel Atom N450. 2 gigs of RAM, 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD with a 1 terabyte My Passport Ultra. That's running Windows 7 Starter. This is running Linux Mint 19. I can't run Linux Mint 20 on that because it's 32-bit only. That is a Gateway E1400 small form factor pizza box with a Pentium 3 866, although it doesn't really support it, so it's only running at 650. I don't remember the RAM or the hard drive, but it is running Windows 2000 right now, I think. Below that's an IBM. I still don't know what this is, but I'm going to call it a NetVista. That's a Pentium 4 2 gigahertz with, I believe, 1 gig of RAM, 40 gigabyte hard drive. It's running Windows XP. That is an HP Pavilion 3260. That is a Pentium 200, I believe, with MMX. 64 megs of RAM, 3.2 gig hard drive running Windows 98. This isn't running anything right now, but my plan is eventually to use that as a PXE boot server. That is a Dell Optiplex GX270. It's a Pentium 4 3.4 gigahertz. This is an HP Vectra VL400 SF, small form factor, Pentium 3 800. Don't remember the RAM or the hard drive or what it's running. This is running nothing, but I'm going to turn this into a syslog server, actually. Dell Optiplex GX280. Pentium 4 2.6, I believe, but it's not hyper-threaded, so it's an older one. This is an HP Vectra VL420. That's a Pentium 4 of some description. I don't remember the RAM right now. And it's running Haiku. I should pull that out and update it. This has never seen a video. In fact, it's never seen power. I really ought to get on with that. It's a Wang Exec 3131. It's a 386 that I think is like 20 megahertz or something. It's rather slow. You can see it's seen better days. I don't know anything else about it, or if it even works. This I need to finish assembly on. That is an Asus P/I P55T2P4 motherboard with a Pentium 120. This is the Corel Cache 386DX at 33 megahertz, I believe. I don't remember how much RAM it's got. I'm going to say it's got 1 megabyte of memory, 120 megabyte hard drive. It's got a Western Digital video card. It is running DOS and Windows 3.1. Same deal with these two. They're both running DOS and Windows 3.1. This top one is a Vectra 48666U. So that's a 486 DX266 with 16 megs of RAM and a 1.6 gigabyte hard drive. This one is a 486DX33 with 2 megs of RAM, and I believe it's got a 120 megabyte SCSI hard drive in it. Below that is the Digital DeckStation 425C. That's a 486SX, 25 megahertz, with a Waytech Math coprocessor. Don't remember the RAM. I know it's got a SCSI hard drive in it of some description, and it's also running DOS and Windows 3.1. I haven't done a whole lot with it. There's the IBM IntelliStation E Pro. I could probably take that off. That's a Pentium 2. Don't remember the speed. I don't remember how much RAM or what hard drive is in it, but it is running Windows 98. This, again, I could probably take this sticker off. It doesn't really need it. Is a Zenith Z158 XT clone. It needs a lot of work. This one is a Dell Optiplex GX1. That's a Pentium 2, I believe is what that sticker says. Yes, that is a Pentium 2. Clearly it's year 2000 compliant. But Pentium 2, I don't remember the RAM or the hard drive or what it's running right now. That is a Dell Optiplex GX110. So that's a Pentium 3. I don't remember the RAM or the hard drive in that either, but it's running Windows 98, I do know that. In here, this is an IBM PS2 Model 56 SLC that I need to do some work on. I have not really done anything with it, so I don't know really much of anything about it. Below that, again, I need to do work on that too. That one, I think, needs a CMOS battery, and that's a Dallas chip I'm going to have to desolder, so that's going to be a real pain. But that's a AMD 486 clocked at 120 megahertz on some Asus board of some description or another. This used to be the Compaq Presario S5000NX, but right now it's got my Pentium D rig in it. Pentium D820, 1 gig of RAM, 80 gigabyte hard drive, and it is running Windows Vista Ultimate. There's the MB VLSI 286. That's a 12 megahertz system with 1 meg of RAM, a 40 megabyte Seagate ST251 hard drive. I think it's MFM, not RLL. If it was RLL, it'd be 60 megabytes. That right now is running DOS and Windows 2. Buried way back there is an NEC Ready 9625. I want to call that a Pentium 133, but it might only be a 120. This is a Compaq Evo D510 that, again, I think the only thing that I really remember about that is that it's a Pentium 4 2.4. I don't think it's even got a hard drive in it right now. This certainly doesn't. This is a HP DX5150. That's an AMD Athlon 64X2 3800 Plus with 4 megs of RAM. This is an Acer Aspire X1800. That's got a Pentium dual-core E5400. I think that's it. I don't think it's got RAM or hard drive in it right now. And this, yes, I do still have it, is the Compaq Portable. It's Portable 3, I believe. I know it's a Portable 386 with a 386 at 20 megahertz, but again, I haven't done a whole lot with this. I need to put G-Setup onto a floppy and get this thing running. But if you thought that was all the machines that I've got, no, we've got a lot more. Now I have to keep it down because it is about 1:30 in the morning. This is my Acer Switch 110. It's got an Atom Z8300 CPU in it, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigabytes of flash storage. It's running Windows 10. This is an IBM ThinkPad R40. It's a Pentium 3 of some description or another. I don't remember how much RAM is in it. It does not have a hard drive at present, however. Now the next machines, I'm just going to mention what they are and some brief specs and a title on the screen, because there's people downstairs that are sleeping, I'm sure, and I don't want to wake them up. So, here we go. Okay, I'm going to actually redo this segment, just because there's been some reorg. So there's two machines that have been moved inside, and they'll show up later on in this video. But, so obviously it's quite a bit later, and there is snow everywhere. There might have been snow everywhere the first time I did this, but now, of course, almost the end of the year, there is a lot more snow. So let's see what we can see. This is what's in here. Let's see if we can get some of this nonsense out of the way. Doesn't want to behave, but anyway, down there, you can see that. That's the Zenith. What is that? Z-Select 100, 486, 33 megahertz. Don't know how much RAM. It's got a 540 megabyte Connor hard drive. It's running DOS and Windows 3.1. That is the Dell Inspiron 530 Core 2 Quad Q6600 with, I don't think it's got anything else in it right now. Neither does that. That's the Dell Dimension 5150 Pentium 4 3 gigahertz. Okay, there's been some reorganization, but what's going on here is this is just some, I think it's like a 600 megahertz Pentium 3 with an Asus P3B-F motherboard. I don't know how much RAM. It's got no hard drive, so it's not really doing anything. This is the old family computer with the Athlon 1300 Thunderbird. It's an ASRock motherboard. I don't know what model it is exactly, but I don't really remember anything else about it. I need to finish putting this all the way back together. But this case is new. This was the case that it was in. And this right now has got the Asus K8V SE Deluxe board in it, but not much else. Oh, there's one more that I forgot. I can't believe I forgot it too. It's the iMac G3 350. So it's a 350 megahertz PowerPC G3. I think it's got 256 megs of RAM, 20 gigabyte hard drive, and it's running Mac OS 9. Here's the first amendment I'm going to make to the video. I've replaced both of the network servers, as you might be able to tell. This one over here is the primary now. That is a... Well, it's got the Asus A8N SLI Premium board in it, which is an Athlon 64X2 4200 Plus, 2 gigs of RAM, a 16 gigabyte Apacer industrial SSD for booting, and then this one is the M2N SLI Deluxe, which has the Athlon 64X2 6000 Plus, 2 gigs of RAM, and a 16 gigabyte Apacer industrial SSD. Both of them, of course, are still running pfSense 2.4.5. Couple more addendums to make. This is my main rig, and as you might be able to guess by that, I've gone ahead and changed the SSD in it, so it's now running a 240 gigabyte Patriot Burst SATA 6 gig solid state drive as its boot drive. Shuttle X PC down here that I thought had 1 gig of RAM actually has 2 gigs. And I also added an NVIDIA GeForce FX 5700 AGP video card, which isn't really that great of a video card, but I'm sure it's still better than the onboard SIS 651. Okay, buried underneath all this nonsense is the T410, which, for the longest time, it's the first SSD I ever bought. It's been running an ADATA SX900. But I recently decided, since I upgraded the one in the main computer, I have this 240 gig and the extra storage space would be nice for this. So I changed it out for the Kingston A400. That is a little bit, well, I don't know if I'd call it worn out. It's definitely got some wear on it, but it still works just fine. But that's what's in here now. The ADATA SX900 SSD was then cycled down to this machine, the Low-End Radio Party Line PC. The Party Line PC had a 128 gig Apacer SSD in it. That went into this HP G60. And the 40 gigabyte Apacer SSD that was in the HP G60 is now in the Toshiba Tecra A8 that is sitting right there. The SLY rig here actually now has an 8 gigabyte RAM kit installed in it. Quick update on some of these, just because I have powered a few, actually most of them. Not these, but all 5 of those and this have been powered up so I can update them. This PS256 SLC, this is actually a 386 SLC2, maybe just a 386 SLC. I know it's a 20 megahertz part, and it's basically a 486 SX, but that is similar to the 386. It's got a 32-bit internal clock, but it has a 16-bit data and 24-bit address bus. But it's got 4 megs of RAM, an 80 megabyte SCSI hard drive, and it's running DOS and Windows 3.1. Just whatever it came with when it was there. I still need to reload it. I haven't decided what I'm going to load onto it yet. This actually is not an Asus board. This is a BioStar board. It's an MB8433UUD-A. Gotta love those model numbers. It has 64 megs of RAM, a Quantum Trailblazer 840 megabyte hard drive, but I can't do anything with it because indeed it's got a soldered Dallas equivalent. It's actually an Odin module, but it's basically a DS12887A that I need to replace before I can do anything with that. And that NEC ready, it is indeed a Pentium 120, but it's got 64 megs of RAM and a 10 gigabyte, it says digital on it, but it's actually a Quantum SCSI hard drive running DOS and Windows 3.1. This thing actually has got 4 gigs of RAM installed in it. And then this thing, I don't know exactly what hard drive is in it. I configured it for a 100 megabyte, and that was sufficient to get it to work. It's got a 70 megabyte partition on it, roughly. So, it could be an 80 megabyte hard drive. I think it's probably been upgraded from the original just based on this. And the fact that it's got a 3.5 inch floppy drive as opposed to a 5.25. Although this is not a portable 3, it is a portable 386. I believe there is a difference between the two. But like I said, I do know it's a 386 clocked at 20 megahertz with 2 megabytes of memory installed. And I think that is pretty much it. I can't think of any other machines that I'm missing. I guess we'll see how quickly this gets out of date, how many amendments I have to make to it, and that'll determine whether or not I actually make it public. Hopefully this time it'll actually end up making it to YouTube. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. And this is CP666 signing off, and I hope to see you next time. Till then.